is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and today we're talking about the Invisible Man. That's my best Claude Rains impersonation, both the invisibility and the voice. Welcome everyone to week 3. Yeah, week 3 of the Teacup for One classic Universal monster movie marathon. This week we're talking about one of the monsters that gets not nearly enough love, the Invisible Man. This movie is so good. No one appreciates how good this movie actually is. Everyone says, "Oh, Frankenstein." Frankenstein's a terrible movie. We're going to talk about that next week, but we'll get there when we get there. Anyway, let's see what we have in the chat today. It's Eliza, my cat. Eliza, always a pleasure. And I think that's it. So, Eliza, the show might just be for you. All right. Well, we have a stacked guest list for tonight. I'm just kidding. It's only one person. It's Alex, everyone.
Hey, everyone, i.e. Eliza. Welcome to this might as well be a private discussion about how mid the Invisible Man is.
How can you say it's mid?
It's just, I mean, when just in response to your I don't know if adulation is the right word, but your praise, if not adulation.
No, I would say praise. Dracula, I would accept as mid.
This is Dracula. No, Dracula had Renfield. And in fact, this movie has Renfield too, just in very, very brief. Maybe I shouldn't say that definitively, but I was quite certain that the reporter in that one in the scene where the in the second half of the film, there's when the ultimate police chief, not the first chief we see, but the last chief that we see who ends up
that's not Renfield.
I'm pretty sure it's Renfield. It looks a lot like the actor who played Renfield.
Google it.
All right, Googling.
Okay, fine. Welcome, Alex. You ready to talk about the Invisible Man?
Yes, I am, Mr. Yipchuk.
Very good, very good. But yeah, look this up first.
Dwight Fry, right? Was Renfield?
I don't know. That's your job. Right now.
It was, and then.
So, for anyone watching who maybe hasn't seen The Invisible Man, actually, Alex, why don't you describe the movie? I could do it, but I'm curious to hear how you would describe it.
All right. Well, he is in The Invisible Man. I'm right. He's also in a bunch of them. He's in Frankenstein. He's in
isn't he Igor in Frankenstein?
A million movies. Let's see. He's Fritz.
Oh, he's Fritz. Okay, never mind.
Fritz. So the Invisible Man. Describe the Invisible Man. It's how to describe it. So it's of its time. It's an older film. It's 1936 or something, or 33? 33.
Yeah.
And but I think compared. So Dracula was 31, right? Yep. Compared to Dracula. As a movie, The Invisible Man, I think, is significantly ahead. In terms of editing, in terms of cohesive, or rather coherent storytelling.
Cohesion.
Cohesion, coherency. Right. It's everything kind of for the most part tracks. There are still classic. There are still shoddy editing. There is still shoddy editing in this film. Occasionally, though, there's the
I was hoping for a plot description.
So okay, well, I mean, you could say, how would you describe the story or the narrative?
Okay, sorry. How would you describe the plot? How would you describe this movie to somebody who's never seen this movie?
Well, I mean, the way I have, but no, I would say in terms of the plot of The Invisible Man, it surprised me, right? You think, it's okay, what would you do if you were invisible, or what would a person do, or whatever? And this movie actually kind of has an interesting formula, which is that not only, so the premise is that there's a scientist who, through his experimentation, basically a chemist rather, which is a scientist, but he's a chemist, and he what's his name, Griffin, Griffin, Jack Griffin.
Jack
Griffin. So he's a chemist, and he experiments basically He's just searching for, some people search for the Fountain of Youth. He's searching for just some random breakthrough, and it's unclear actually. I don't remember if the movie. I don't recall the movie actually clarifying what his way into that particular chemical was short for. Anyway, but he experiments with a chemical that basically he injects it under his skin for a certain period of time, and presumably he mixes it with other chemicals.
Oh yeah, there's an ingredient list.
Yeah, and the effect is that eventually all of the tissues, all the muscles, everything in the body and of the body becomes transparent, translucent. You can see through it, effectively invisible. And the movie does say that, like, if he eats food, the food will be visible. And the movie does actually kind of, interestingly enough, account for a number of different scenarios. Like, the movie was really clever in a lot of ways, and the writing was pretty good in a lot of ways too. And the movie goes through
yet you said it's mid.
Well, so again, for all there are lots of good things about this movie, and like I started off comparing it with Dracula and saying how it was like significantly ahead of Dracula for the time period in terms of the cohesion, the editing. But let me just finish the description for Eliza.
True. Although one key thing that you left out though is that side effect, aside from being invisible, of like the main invisibility compound.
Well, that was good. I was going to say I already included that. It has a neat. Yes, that was a neat twist to the formula.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to gloss over that because that's important.
I wasn't going to gloss over. That was where that idea. Yes, exactly. So as Matt just spoiled, ruined my brilliant reveal. The interesting thing is that the movie doesn't just give us a man with invisibility. They add this little, caveat that you also become insane, basically, or in a sense, you gain some form, as the movie calls it, madness. And in this case, the madness manifests as he's like power seeking. He feels he's violent. He wants
an anarchist. He wants to
I don't know if I'd say become an anarchist. I don't think, because he wants to rule the world himself. He doesn't want to just destroy the world. He wants to be like, and it's not even. But it's not like he has a.
He's terrorizing people, though. Would you say is terrorist a proper?
Well, no, because terrorism is like politically motivated, and his motivations are not they're not political. They're not.
He wants to rule the world, though. They're kind of politically motivated.
Well, no, but they're not like there's no political ideology. He's literally he's basically. He has a very simple principle that he's operating on, which is, I feel powerful. I want to exert this power. Imagine, like, very quickly. Like, he's not though he's a chemist and a scientist, when he's mad, he doesn't have like a methodical plan or a systematic, plan laid out or again, planned for.
Doesn't he? He has the whole plan where he wants to team up with Kemp. He wants to like tag team who's going to be visible and who's going to be invisible, assuming that he can find the remedy. Like, he has a plan, or at least.
Well, but yes, but again, but that's what you're talking about. What you're speaking to there is that he's thought about, like, again, it's all very preliminary. He talks about, like, on the occasion when I can't go outside, you'll go outside, or sometimes I won't want to be invisible. But he doesn't have a 10-year plan or a 1-year plan. Even he doesn't have a concrete and systematic plan. He has ideas, and even the ones that are more thought out, i.e., his plans for Kent or whatever his name is. Even the dirty little coward. We'll just call him the dirty little coward. Yeah. His plans for the dirty little coward are not that. They're not advanced plans. They're relatively speaking simple. Anyway. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that's not a slight against him. That's just to say I think that's just an accurate description. He became invisible, and he started having these delusions of grandeur, as it were, but they were relatively simple delusions of, I'm invisible, I'm power. Now, that's another thing too. Side note, the movie is somewhat unclear on whether or not he has any kind of enhanced strength. I would say,
I feel like at one point he alludes to it, and I got the impression that was just them covering their bases, because a lot of the invisibility effects are not a lot. Some of them are things that a human of average strength just couldn't do, I feel.
Well, Yeah, I don't know if we see anything that like defies human strength per
Not
se.
defies, but it's just like on the brink of us, like a stronger than average human would be
Yeah, I mean, there's
required.
certainly certain
Like lift
feats.
up the bike, for example, with such ease and throw it the way that the bike.
Bikes can be pretty light. That's not
Back
a good
then, though,
example.
they were heavy. It was not. It
Picking
was
a
the
man.
70s.
They made bikes out of lead.
Yeah,
No,
exactly. Yeah,
picking up
picking up other
man.
humans. Yeah.
Yeah, and spinning him by the feet, though, can be done after some momentum is built and stuff. The
Some
way so,
momentum,
but again, it's unclear to me that the movie is like it's unclear how intentional or not that was, as how much that was just a matter of let's have the Invisible Man do these things
Mhm.
and not really like I feel the movie goes not out of its way, but the movie does such a great job of very clearly defining certain rules,
Yeah.
i.e., all of the different ways that he can be seen and caught, and
Mhm.
all of his anticipation of I'll have to like with Kemp.
Yeah.
That I feel the movie. There's no reason the movie wouldn't have just flat out included that of in the German experiment, the dog turned white as marble, and also it became very strong and possessed super strength. Like that would have just been something or whatever. Possessed higher than average strength. I can't do the accents of this movie are very funny. I want to say most of them skew towards like South African.
What?
Yeah, he's like there's
They're
got
like
to be a way
they're
Beck
British.
Beck
Or who? Which ones? Like the scientists?
for
All the
for Griffin for the scientists basically. And I don't know what accent that Mrs. Hill like the
oh,
and
Jenny?
yeah I don't know what accent she had,
Isn't
but
that
she
just like a
had
super thick British Cockney-ish accent?
I'm not from like
Like
I don't have
Eliza
an
Doolittle,
ear.
but more intense, like dialed up.
Well, the thing was there was British, but then there was also there were like East Coast like isms. There were the way she would say like A's and stuff. There were
Who you mean, Jenny?
Jenny, yeah. There was a combination of like British and some Scottish, Irish, Newfoundlandish like thing going on. And again, it might be some dialect of British that I don't have an ear for, but
Well,
it was.
I'm looking at the cast right now. It was a mix of British and Americans. And
Mhm.
also just given when this was made, like transatlantic was either already a thing or just around the corner for movie dialects. But also Claude Rains apparently like had a really thick native Cockney accent. So I feel like the weirdness in his voice was him trying to either tone that down or move towards an American accent or either or. Like it was super distinct.
Yeah. Well, to my ear, it all kind of like
Where'd you get
his
South
voice. Well, just the again, my all my South African or most of my South African training, a little bit comes from Blood Diamond, but most of it comes from Lethal Weapon. I believe it's the second or third film.
Okay.
I think it's the third film. But yeah, there's a anyway there. Yeah. So.
It's okay.
But even go to Blood Diamond, you can.
I don't
if
want
it
to
got-
Blood Diamond.
or District 9. District 9, that's full of South African.
Oh, I do love
dialect,
District
right?
9. The one
District
time I
9,
watched
so.
it, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
One thing I will say that I didn't like about the script, as it were, is like the reasoning that the chemical is what made him go insane. Because I would prefer that he just went insane by being invisible. I think that's more interesting because I think the core of what makes this story so fascinating is just this concept of like this could be anybody, and then when given invisibility it allows them to like just act on whatever impulses they have without fear of retribution because they're invisible. They can't get caught, and to me that's more interesting than just putting the band-aid over top of it with like here's the excuse, he was a good guy but the chemical made him go insane. It was the chemical, it wasn't him.
I agree in this like as a premise that's more fascinating, and like this movie doesn't really explore that at all.
I mean, like if you choose to ignore that one line, you could just make that what the movie is. Like he's just acting that way because he's invisible.
I would caveat that I would so for my experience, right? Like the way the movie keeps the madness part, like it doesn't give it to you right away. So
Right.
at the beginning of the movie, we just see this guy wrapped up We first sort of slowly learn that eventually, after a few, whatever, 10, 20 minutes, we learn that he's invisible. And then pretty quickly after that, he like loses his temper and starts cackling maniacally. Those are not normal things, nor are they things that I would think that if the movie didn't give me the excuse of madness, I would like, there would be questions that aren't answered.
No, he's gone drunk and mad with power. He's been corrupted.
Yeah, see, that the movie would be weaker in my opinion that way, because it would basically just almost, it would be as if the movie is trying to make the point that you just made of like, the power of invisibility is corrupting without really exploring it at all. It would just be like, he's invisible, and of course he's now evil. That's just the way corruption of power works.
Yeah.
That's not an interesting or insightful exploration. That's just that's a nothing. Whereas this movie, so I would say that what you're describing is just a better movie than this one. Like this movie.
Oh no, this movie's perfect.
Yeah, this movie, has its premise, which is interesting. It's interesting, just kind of like it's not interesting in its exploration. It's interesting as an idea, i.e., like pairing invisibility with madness.
Well, I think
that's
an ongoing thing. I like one of the first videos I did on this channel was about this movie. When I was super ambitious, I did a video a day in October 2020. I watched a different movie and did a video essay. It almost killed me, actually. One of them was about this movie, and I compared it to Lord of the Rings specifically, which is like, I'm ready for you to argue with me on that point, but just kind of as an in for the whole exploration.
It has nothing to do with
Yes, it has everything, because the ring makes people go invisible, and then it corrupts them and turns them into Gollum, because absolute
okay, I'll give you that. Sure, but
and you can see, from what I remember, you see a little bit of it with Frodo, and I understand, or I assume within the mythology of Lord of the Rings, there's more to it than just invisibility leads to corruption. But I do think that that's a little bit of an in for the appeal, at least for Frodo at the beginning, and even for Bilbo, of I have this in my back pocket, like almost quite literally. If I need to become invisible for my own safety, I could do it. If I need to become invisible to exert power in a situation, I can do it. Invisibility is an in that gives someone status and power over everybody else. And I feel like there are other explorations, I couldn't tell you what, but other fictional explorations of this whole theme, and even just discussions about what invisibility means for humans and the appeal of it. Because I think there was an experiment that was done. I think it was this
dog.
I heard on a dog. Or maybe it wasn't even an experiment. It was just an episode of This American Life, probably, because I went through that phase, as we all did in our 20s, listening to This American Life, where they were saying they polled people to see if they had the choice between the ability to fly or the ability to become invisible, what would they pick? And pretty well all kids picked flying and all adults picked invisibility. And it just led to this discussion about how everyone wants to be invisible for various reasons. And then it led to like dark places, which I can't remember offhand what they were, but I think there is something to that this story explores. And that's also present in Lord of the Rings, because the ring makes you addicted to invisibility and then turns you into Gollum.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll give you that I'll give you that parallel in this, but it's a relatively surface level parallel in terms of the comparison.
Lord of the Rings is a very surface level book. So
I haven't read it, so I can't comment on that. But definitely, I agree. It's a using invisibility as a metaphor or simile, a sort of an analogy to the corruption of power, and using, demonstrating or illustrating that corruption of power via invisibility. That is I think, like an interesting, intriguing, and entertaining notion. Again, this movie, The Invisible Man, 1933, I don't believe is any kind of interesting exploration of that. The movie, again, primarily because it throws in the.
How does it know? It's about a guy who wants to rule the world because he's invisible.
Well, no, it's about a guy who wants to rule the world because the chemical / drug that made him invisible also makes him crazy / power hungry. That's what it's about. It doesn't.
That's not what it's
about. It actually quite literally is what it's about. And that's what my first point was in response to when you first brought up the idea of a movie that just looked at invisibility and how invisibility in and of itself would be sufficiently corrupting ability. This movie doesn't do that. If it did, I'd give you something more than I have.
Then why wouldn't it be called instead of the Invisible Man? Then I feel if we're going with what you're saying, it should be called
to clarify, what I'm saying is what the movie's about. I'm not saying anything controversial here.
Madness
the movie is about
should be called.
Sure, I mean, I don't have a problem with the movie being called The Invisible Man, but I don't think the movie would be it would be inaccurate to call it The Chemically Induced Madness Man.
But
also happens to be invisible as well.
Who is also invisible.
Who is also invisible.
Who is also
invisible. Exactly. So like again, that just speaks to that is what this movie is about, and this movie. I don't think this movie shouldn't have been about what it is. Like I said, I think it's a entertaining premise. It's fun that this movie pairs madness with invisibility, because we get to see some very kind of abrupt, fast-paced shenanigans as opposed to a slower burn where we get to see a otherwise decent, moral human being kind of slowly get corrupted or gradually get corrupted over time, and kind of with ever increasing feats of violence. Not that this movie doesn't have some form of that, but for the most part, it kind of once we find out that he's invisible, and right before we find out that he's also forced to be mad by the drugs. We get some pretty right off the top like intense violence, if you will. Like he basically tries to kill the first cop that he strangles, as far as we can tell. And he just goes around running, throwing shit, and like hitting people and whatnot. Like he's not this movie is not about the gradual corruption of a man. It's basically about, after the first 20 minutes, it basically just like, he's a man. He became invisible, and also we find out in the first 20 minutes it also made him crazy. So now you get to watch a movie about him being invisible and crazy, and that's basically the movie.
I half agree and I half disagree, because that's how math works. Because I think
that's how math works.
Well, that as well.
Math.
That's how math works.
No. The same people say aesthetic can say math. What? Because th, and the word aesthetic, it's a th. There's no two t's. It's a th. So either you pronounce aesthetic. It the, or you pronounce it with a t. So then math. That's how you pronounce math.
Aesthetic.
Math. Yeah. Math. Aesthetic. Math.
And
math.
Okay, where were we?
That's just the way you say the word.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
I feel you're mocking me, but
okay.
What was I saying? It was about how I half agreed with you and half didn't agree. I think the movie absolutely is exploring directly or indirectly about the corruption that comes with invisibility. If not, maybe not the corruption, but the appeal of it that would lead to the corruption, because at its core, it's still about whether or not he's motivated by chemically induced madness or just his id, even though Freud, I think, has been disproven. But either way, the idea of evil subconscious desires, I think it's showing us what happens if somebody is just given that permission to act on what they want to act on, because #invisibility, and whether or not insanity or like full sanity is present is irrelevant. But the whole element of the madness, I feel, is a really clever way to bring in humor into the movie, like with him just having his maniacal laughter and going on those invisible shenanigans. Like, I feel like this is a movie that's really well balanced with the comedy and very aware of the campy nature, as opposed to like the guy everyone said last week for Dracula that they loved, the cop or whoever that character was. To me, there were things in Dracula that were funny, but probably weren't intended to be funny, or things that just didn't necessarily age well over the past 90 plus years. Whereas for me, I think this movie, the director was very conscious of how he was balancing comedy with the thrilling elements, the horror elements, and to me it's like very well balanced. I think that added narrative element of the chemical makes him like mad, as it were. It opens the door for him to have those Mad Hatter moments of like singing "Here We Go Gathering Nuts in May," which is a personal favorite part. Where it's like,
yeah. I mean, I definitely think that the movie like is very funny at parts. I don't like I basically agree with what you just said there in terms of the specifically the film's I guess balancing of comedy with, let's say, narrative. The For me, most of the fun comedy kind of expired after the first, like once he left that like inn or whatever. The film basically, for the most part, let's see.
You didn't think his invisible shenanigans were funny throughout the whole movie? Like when he was talking to Kemp and he called him a dirty little coward? It's like, you've always been a dirty little coward, but now you're a dirty little rat as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this car into neutral and I'm going to give you a little push. And then it's going to go down 100 feet. And then you're going to... And it's like, this is hilarious.
Yeah, no, I don't think the movie was trying to be funny at that point.
You don't?
No, I think the stuff with like the whole like slapstick stuff of like the countertops like flying open in sequence, the like let me call like Jenny, like there was a lot of like sort of obvious comedic moments, the maniacal laughter for sure. I don't quite necessarily like, I mean, I'm not closed off, but I don't to the like I'm not saying you're wrong about him describing to Kemp how he's going to kill him, but I don't think for 1933, I didn't get any hint that that particular scene was supposed to be especially funny. I'm not saying I didn't like, I can see the humor in it for sure, but I didn't, as opposed to other scenes that for me seemed very intentionally, directorially funny. That's not a scene that I would pick as an example of that.
No, like it's not slapstick funny. I think it's very...
Oh, I'm not saying it's slapstick, or that's not my main thing. I'm just saying to me, it just didn't strike me as that's a sequence that either could have gone a non-funny way or a funny way, and it was opted to go a funny way per se. I mean, granted, with the caveat,
I would invert that. I would say that scene to me wasn't meant to be scary.
Oh, sure, I agree, but I think nothing in the movie is meant to be scary. I think the whole, yeah, I think the whole movie had this tone of like, like an up. I don't know, like the way that the word's escaping me, but like this, the whole movie felt, you know, for lack of a better term, like kind of happy and joyous. Like there was an upbeat nature for the whole thing, even when they were like
talking about wanting to kill everybody.
Yes, and it was like crazy. Again, it was exaggerated and heightened. He was like, "I'm gonna kill you, and I'll kill you, and at 10 o'clock I will strangle you at 10 o'clock." And he's like, he's gonna kill me at 10 o'clock. He said, "At 10 o'clock, you're gonna save me. You gotta lock me up in a cell and throw away the key, man." He's like, if you're so scared, I'll send you to a cop car.
Yeah, didn't you just say that you didn't think those moments were meant to be funny? And yet here we are, enjoying them in a jovial nature?
I think the whole movie had that air. So there were
exactly, because it's a perfectly balanced
if everything's funny, then nothing's funny. That's my point. There were certain parts of the film that stood out as being especially comedic, and then there were other parts of the film that didn't stand out in that way. So that's all I'm saying. I didn't, and then that seemed to me was not one of those like, this is one of those especially heightened jokes compared to the like that Mrs. like Jenny's face when she's like, "Can I take your coat to dry in the kitchen?" And he's like, "No." She's like, and, you know, like she makes her little like less than a second long like frame of her face. No, like there's some very obvious humor in this movie, and then there's, well, I guess, not that it's subtle, but just less obvious. And I think that less obvious is just the lens throughout the entire film. The whole film is funny, but again, if everything's funny, nothing's funny. So it's lighthearted, it's joyous, it's happy.
Yeah,
you know.
I don't think it's a joyous or happy movie though.
Well, I mean, again,
I think maybe it sparks
silly.
Joy in the
maybe
viewer.
Silly is the right word. You know, it's a silly movie. The whole movie's kind of has this pervasive silliness to it, where it's like the premise is to an extent ridiculous. There's a naked invisible man running around with delusions of grandeur, strangling people to death and throwing bicycles at citizens.
Exactly.
That's a ridiculous premise, and the movie, in order to sell us on some kind of believable narrative, has to embrace the ridiculous premise. And so by that fact, that the whole movie kind of consistently has this era to it in my experience.
Yeah, I'm amazed because I both fully agree with you while disagreeing with you.
It's happened before.
I know.
So.
No, I agree. I think the thing for me is that everything you're saying is valid, with the added factor that I think it is still being grounded by an element of horror or thriller. Either way, well, it was definitely released and marketed as a horror movie. So, like, undeniably, whether it was successful at that or not, it's considered a horror movie that I think has comedic elements. And it is definitely heightened. It's almost like brinking on satirical, or absurdism is the wrong word. It would be, satirical. But I don't think it would have a lasting impact. And I don't think it would be as good of a film as it is if it didn't have an awareness of what makes the story or the setup scary. Like, again, the whole notion of here's a guy who could do whatever he wants because he's invisible. And I do feel that the supporting cast, even like the ones like Jenny, who are a little bit, not even a little bit, who are ridiculously over the top, there is still a truth to how they're reacting to the situation.
Sure. Oh yeah. They're bought into like that's what makes it funny when like the stand-up moments. Like they're committed to the absurd universe, the absurd reality that they're supposed to be. Like,
I actually think one of the funniest moments for me, which wasn't even a haha funny, but funny, like comedic, but I didn't laugh at it, was just how accepting everyone was of him being invisible. Like there's one point when, or maybe even 2 points when they're like, "Oh, he's invisible. We have to deal with that."
Well, like when the cops were talking about it and stuff like that, and it's like, "Well, here's what it is. He's invisible." There's no, If he leaves his house, we'll not catch him for 1,000 years.
And another thing that I love about this movie is just the ingenuity with how they're coming up with methods to catch an invisible man.
Ingenuity.
The ingenuity.
It's an ingenuity is it means it's a different word, and I don't even know if it is ingenuity.
Like superfluous?
Well, it's like disingenuous. There's
after
ingenuous.
Superfluous, I can't trust you on these things.
I know, but this one, I mean, here, you want me to Google it, or do you want to Google it?
Yeah,
either way, I won't.
No, you Google it. You Google it.
Okay. I'll Google it. Basically, ingenuity is like it's the opposite of like or disingenuity. So if disingenuous means you're kind of dishonest, let's say, then ingenuous would be that you are honest. So ingenuity would be referring to that. Ingenuity. There's edge annuity. What happens if I look that up?
Fine. Ingenuity. I feel like
ingenuity refers to ingeniousness.
I think you can pronounce ingenuity as ingenuity.
That doesn't seem. Why would you think that?
Because
you feel like you've heard somebody say ingenuity before.
I think it's far more commonplace for people to say ingenuity over ingenuity.
I don't even know if ingenuity is a thing.
Well, it is. It's
ingenuity. No, ingenuity is not far more commonplace.
It's like laboratory versus laboratory. You know what they are. You know what the word
means.
Yes,
and laboratory is the far more common pronunciation in America or
in
North
England,
America. Yes. Well, nobody says ingenuity for a word that's spelled ing.
Let's hear what Google has to say. Hold on.
Saying,
there's a speaker next
to.
Like
pronouncing, inventive as inventive.
Google said ingenuity.
What are you talking about?
Google said ingenuity.
Exactly. Ingenuity. Like going to the inn.
No, N.
No, it didn't say N. I'm clicking Google right now. The IPA is right there. It's E. In.
Oh, like you know what that symbol means.
I'm not saying I know what the symbol means. I'm saying I know how the phonetic alphabet works, and it's definitive.
So
I haven't memorized the phonetic alphabet, but I'm basically saying that I'm pointing to a piece of evidence that is definitive. So if you want to look up the phonetic alphabet and compare those symbols, and figure out the sound.
I will.
All right. after these messages.
Yes, after the we don't have messages.
So basically,
so
my
no,
overall
I was saying that I liked how they were so ingenious.
Clever, yeah. They were a little clever.
They were clever. They were ingenious with how they came up with methods for catching an invisible man. It was great.
I agree, and I think I mentioned that before, but yeah, I appreciated all of the different aspects, both like we were saying, how Griff, like the Invisible Man himself, how he was kind of going over all the different ways that he's actually visible in this universe, like the rules of his invisibility, because you could just as easily had it so that anything that he ingested would have also become immediately invisible. But
which actually, I feel like that should be the rule, because
the way that they described his process doesn't quite apply, right? Because it's like they described it both when they were describing like the dog and the cloth and stuff, like it's an overtime process and the color fades over time type thing, and so and through repeated application, right? So it's like in that sense it makes sense intuitively almost that like.
But then why would it just be food and not liquid? If he drinks something, wouldn't you?
Well, water is relatively see-through, and also
I feel like you could still see the water sloshing around.
But again, he didn't like eating doesn't exclude liquids. They're not mutually exclusive. So he may very well have, like, I mean, at no point do we see him drinking water, or does he talk about drinking water in a different way. He just mentions the one time, aside from mentioning that he's hungry, he just talks about it that one time, and basically when he ingests food, which water would be a part of.
Like, is there any point where your body is fully like wiped of all liquid?
Well, again, the external liquids, right? So that's what I mean, though. He's invisified his blood and whatever, right? All the other fluid that is normally in his body.
Wouldn't there still be like some urine though, or just water sitting in his stomach?
Still be whatever was in there would be invisible.
So like I feel like it's just so much more complicated for him if water and liquids are part of this, to not just monitor when he's not eating, but also just to be aware of like when he can drink things or not drink things.
What are you talking about? I do 36-hour fasts every week.
He's super dehydrated.
There's no harm. I mean, I drink water, but yeah, he would just he's crazy, and he's also a scientist. He's a smart guy. He can just he's whatever disciplined. He can just restrict himself to. Sure, I mean, or not necessarily dehydrate, but like just
a dehydrated, chemically induced madness man who is
just maybe drinks before he goes to sleep, drinks right after, and then waits an hour to pee it all out, and then bam. I mean, he could see it, right? He'd be able to, he'd be able to just look down and see what was going on. So he would just do it, and then wait when he's clear to go and have fun. But again, back kind of cutting my point, he doesn't have this like long-term vision. It's all kind of very in the moment for the most part. So it's like, I
got the impression he did have a long-term plan. We just didn't get to hear it as audience members.
Well, Matt, you have all these impressions that there's no basis, there's no facts to support.
There's no facts to support that he didn't have a long-term.
Yes, there are. The movie, all the thing.
You don't just say, I want to take over the world, and
like we have no evidence that he didn't
dream without having a year-long plan or more.
What?
You don't just like go up to your business partner.
He didn't anticipate being cold. All right. What? He didn't anticipate being cold. He made it. It was notable to him that he was cold, running around naked. This is the level of forethought that we had.
Because he was so preoccupied with coming up with his 4-year plan as an invisible man
for a warm rug. Okay, but this is anyway. So, but no, I think the movie has a lot of good things going for it, a lot of humor going for it, especially in the first part of the movie. But it ultimately is mostly this showcase of him running around doing Invisible Man things and maniacally laughing. And for me, the movie ultimately was boring and too long. It was like the movie spent too much time.
It's an hour and 10 minutes.
I know, and that's saying that should be that's why I think this is a mid movie, because the movie it's very efficient and it does things very well in short periods of time, and then it takes other chunks of time and it doesn't do anything interesting. Like it takes like when we first see him go invisible, that sequence is I don't know how long, at least 10 minutes of him running around doing things when he's invisible. And after the first 3-5 minutes, I got bored. I was like, okay, I get it. You're invisible. You're just showing me all the, and it's cool. It's neat. It's 1933. Your camera magic. How
The
you got
effects were so good.
The effects were so good, even though we can see all the the bleed over effects
The
of
what?
his when they hide his head. Like you can see how his collar like comes in and out of, like it disappears. Whatever they use to blend his head with the background image, it catches his clothes. So it's not the most clean effect, but for the time, I'm sure it's miraculous. And all the like moving of all the different objects that have to be moved without being touched. Very cool stuff. But I didn't need 10 minutes of it, every 10 minutes, basically. Every 10 minutes, there's another 10-minute sequence of him running around being an invisible man. I'm not faulting the movie. I'm not saying the movie shouldn't have done that. It's a movie of its time. In 1933, oh my God, my eyes would have been glued to the screen. I would have been fascinated the whole way through. I would have been terrified. Oh man, he's talking about killing people and strangling people, and he's like, "You won't like me when I'm invisible. Am I right? You're lucky I have wrapped myself up and I'm wearing a trench coat right now. I did this for you. But if the moment I take this off, you're gonna be terrified. You're gonna be terrified." See, all that stuff, very great in 1933. 2023. Ooh, what is that? That's 90 years. This is the 90-year-old film. Is that math correct? Yeah,
No.
it should be. Yeah, because 70 years.
90.
Yeah, plus 70 is 2003. Plus 20 is 2020.
90. So it's like, yeah, it's a 90-year-old movie.
That's what I said.
I heard 98.
Well, we have it on record here, so we'll see.
Okay.
And either way, whether I said 98.
No, but we can agree. We can agree right now. 90-year-old movie.
90-year-old movie. Yeah. All right. I mean, that makes sense.
I feel like you're describing the movie like it's a one-trick pony kind of movie, which I don't think it is.
No, I'm not saying it's a one trick. I mentioned multiple tricks. The effects are a trick. Yeah. I think the performances are pretty good. The editing is, compared to Dracula, for example, the editing of its time is probably very good.
I think the pacing is so much better than
the pacing
Dracula.
When it's
I think the story is much more engaging than Dracula.
Yes, I agree.
Boring, like a slow burn.
Yes,
I feel like Claude Rains as the Invisible Man is far more entertaining than Bela was as Dracula.
Yes, but I would, again, the standard of Dracula's was not Bela, was Renfield. So was this guy. So and I wouldn't say that he was more entertaining than Renfield, but I wouldn't say he was much less entertaining. I would say they're pretty comparable, save that Renfield had the added task of being actually visible for his performance, whereas Claude Rains had the luxury of not having to see his face. Not that I don't know if I've seen him in anything else.
Have you?
I don't know.
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So my point there just being like, I'm not sure what his acting is like when I can see his face, but
I think
lots of tricks.
It's such a testament to the performance that he created such an incredible. Well, maybe that's the wrong word. Oh no, I'll stand by it. He created such an incredible character just
through voice acting.
Just through voice acting.
It's voice, and well, not just. He also did a bit of body acting too, right? Like, I mean, not a bit. Yeah. He had to walk through. Presumably, that was him. I guess there's no way to know. But no,
it would have been like, this isn't Mandalorian.
Yeah. This is even the original Star Wars, right?
Again. Do you know? Pedro Pascal will never. He's decided he's not going to be in the Mando suit anymore. He's just the voiceover now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have I didn't hear that at all. I don't know anything about that. That's an interesting discussion for another time, I think.
It is.
But no, like James Earl Jones, right? And I forget the actor's name, but James Earl Jones was the voice of Vader, but not the
it was David Prowse who was inside.
There you are.
Yeah.
No,
this was Claude Rains. Claude Rains did it all.
And but I disagree that that's a greater challenge. I mean, it's a unique challenge for sure. It's a distinct challenge, but certainly not greater than to be fully visible on camera. Like, the knowledge that whatever my face is doing, like, doesn't have to be consistent with my voice. That's way easier in some respects.
I don't think it's easier.
I'm just speaking for myself as an actor, right? Like, I mean, this might be more speaking to my own unique, like, let's say weakness, let's say, as an actor, right? But that's something that I struggle with, is to make consistent what I'm experiencing internally with what I'm expressing externally. So I think that that's, in some way or another, that's the ultimate challenge for any actor, is to convince the people who are looking at you that your internal experience, or at least your external experience, is a reflection of your internal experience, is a representation of your internal experience, i.e., that you're genuine, that you're being real. right? The way our intuition about that is that you're not, that the inside is congruent, is matching the outside. So yeah, like I think it's the same reason why, again, for me, I don't think necessarily every actor, but I think a lot of actors have this experience where if we can wear a mask, in a costume or something, that all of a sudden opens up a world with our voice and with our acting that we don't have access to when we don't have a mask on, because again, there's this uh, challenge to make sure that what that our words are matching, and that our words and that our face are matching what's going on inside. So again, I want not to say that voice acting is easier than regular acting. It's different, but I don't, in this case, the role that Claude Rains plays is a melodramatic role, I would say, and I think melodrama
I think
ultimately
it's
is
easy to take for
easier.
granted how difficult, or I think it's easy to take for granted how good his performance is, without consideration for how difficult of a task he had at hand. Also considering that this movie was made at a time where voice acting wasn't a thing, really. Like the first full-length animated movie didn't come out until 4 years after this, like with Snow White, and even in that, the voice acting's not great, and really all on-camera acting had been largely silent. So voice acting in film, I didn't do the research, but I'm just assuming based on what I know of the timeline, wasn't really an established thing with conventions, which is why I think they went with Claude Rains, because he was a theater performer. And well, like they really liked the sound of his voice, even though reportedly he had a really bad audition because he was way too theatrical, which I think bleeds over into this. But alongside that training comes, to my ear at least, a competency for communicating just through how the words are being spoken. And I think that's what the strength of this performance is. Like, I think every Universal monster, their respective actor, does such a good job because they've been well cast for whatever the needs of the role are. So, like, Bela Lugosi couldn't do this. Granted, I don't know if Claude Rains could pull off the Bela stare, because that's kind of actually all Bela did in Dracula was stare. But he does, like, Claude just does such a great job, I feel, of communicating everything that's going on with this character just with his voice, which I think is so impressive. And it's not even just his performance, but I think the entire movie does a great job of creating the character when he's not visible on screen, just the way that things are framed, the way that people are reacting to him. Like,
You mean like the invisible parts?
yeah, the event, like where the
Oh,
fully,
I agree with that. The
yeah,
the, the
like the scene with
choreography of
Sam in the car,
everybody.
for example. Yeah, the choreo. Anytime someone is
Yeah,
like being strangled by
yeah,
him,
I
that to
agree.
me always felt way more natural than I ever would have expected for a movie that was made at this time.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
nothing to Claude Rains' credit, but yeah,
no, of course, no. And now I'm
yeah,
just speaking for the movie
yeah,
overall.
yeah,
One of
yeah.
the really impressive things with this movie is how, like, how beautifully they create the character when he's not actually there, just by combining performances with how things are framed, like leaving space for him with the actors around
Yeah.
him reacting. I think that's an incredible strength of this film that, to me, makes it swoon worthy.
I mean, I agree that I had a fun time. It was neat seeing the choreography of all those scenes. I totally agree with you. Like the movie does a great job. And like I said, like the editing compared to Dracula was good, but those things don't in and of itself make a good film.
No, 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 not
They're
at all. I
interesting.
think it's because all of that is in service of a good story with an interesting hook that's well written. And
It's
like
a simple, basic story. It's not a good story. And the
it is a
ending
good
of the
story.
story, and the ending is terrible.
How is
The ending
the ending is incredible. He
How is the ending
dies.
incredible?
The ending, well, I think the last shot of this
Oh,
movie
the
brilliant. Like, first off, technical competence aside,
yeah,
but acknowledge the shot where he like comes back into
fades back in,
visibility.
yeah.
I think the special effects there hold up really well. And even if they didn't for its time, it
Mhm.
looks really great. Like the
Yeah,
skull into the man, like that's amazing. But I also think there's a
I
lot
agree.
of narrative power to having seen him or heard him the whole movie. Then you finally see him at the end, like totally still. I
Yeah, so
like,
I'm
I
not
think that's
talking
an
about
effective choice.
yeah, I wasn't referencing the button, I was referencing the story. The end of the narrative is not him fading back into color.
Right.
The ending of the story is that a farmer catches him sleeping on a hay bale
Mhm.
and phones in the police. Again, it's an unimaginative, uncreative, sort of, and again, and all the more indicative. I mean, I guess I'll grant you this. It actually is a further piece of evidence to the point, one of the points that I've been making this time, which is that he didn't have the systematic kind of well thought out plan. He just was going around acting impulsively. And in this case, it was cold outside, I guess. He found a comfy hay bale. And so he got caught by his madness and lack of forethought, as opposed to,
well, it wasn't a lack of forethought. It's because he thought that Kemp was going to be teaming up with him. He had a plan. He just
no. This is after he killed Kemp. So this is when he decided, the very end of the movie, before the button sequence where he goes in the farm and the barnyard or whatever.
Yeah, but like 24 hours before he went into the farm, he wasn't planning to go into a barn.
Yes, correct. He wasn't planning anything. Every moment.
He didn't have a plan B.
He didn't have a plan ever. He just had thoughts. He was a smart guy. I can come up with different things for invisibility, in 5 minutes. I don't need 24 hours to think about how and to notice that food is passing through my digestive tract and is visible. So my point is that that ending, on the one hand, narratively, it's totally uninteresting. The way he gets caught, the way his story comes to an end, is totally uninteresting. On the other hand,
more interesting, because he has to get caught.
Any infinite number of things. Maybe the chemical, maybe it wears off on its own, and he's caught caught buck naked.
That then you'd be here.
It's not Deus Ex Machina. That's this whole chemical, for the most part, is there are a lot of unknowns. He's a pioneer. Nobody but him has managed to achieve what he's done, and he's struggling for a way to find a cure, plus combating madness. There's nothing inexplicable about a unknown or a not fully tested substance producing an effect that was not anticipated. That was not anticipated beforehand.
No, but narratively, I think that would be way more convenient and annoying of an ending
than him getting a farmer running over his body and saying, "He's over here, guys." That's
what issue do you have with the barn? It's great because then all the people who have been capturing him have to come together, or who have been
because they have been together this whole time. They've just been infighting and divisive, and there's just been this whole tribalism thing going on in this movie, and now they actually have this moment of unity at the end. You're right, Matt. That's what the value of the ending is. It's unifying.
It's not so much the unity. There's a satisfying.
All the people who've been chasing him come together,
and then they're able to actually capture him because they have him cornered. As opposed to
that's what happens when a farmer bumps over his invisible body and says, "Hey, copper, he's over here." The cops come to where they think he is, and they capture him. Much the same way they tried to do 3 other times in the movie.
In the barn, and then all of a sudden the invisibility wore off.
No, I think it would have been funnier and better if he was robbing a bank and all of a sudden he's naked in a bank. I think that would have been funny and a more interesting ending. Not that I think it would have been the best ending, but I think it would have been more interesting than him sleeping in a barn and then a farmer stumbling over his body and then him getting caught and shot and killed.
No, but the people that he's terrorizing have to be the ones that apprehend him for the story to have a satisfying ending.
He's robbing a bank and then he appears naked and they all see him and apprehend him and make fun of him because he has a tiny penis. There's your ending. All right. Anyway, I'm perfectly willing to accept that ending is miserable compared to the one we got. My point was not that I know of a better ending. My point was that the ending that this movie gives me narratively was uninteresting to me. And I think
just because was it because it was a farmer specifically? Like you seem to
it was because it was. I don't know how much. Well, we can spend forever talking about this if you'd like, but.
We will.
On paper and verbally and on screen, the way this plot progresses, by the time it gets to the point where he runs into a barn and finds hay and decides to sleep there, and the owner of the barn comes across and hears him breathing, all of these points are not creative. They are not interesting. They're not. When I saw it happen, I did not think to myself, "Oh, wow, isn't that neat? He was sleeping in the barn and the barn owner found his body. Oh, wow, isn't that neat? The farmer called the cops. Oh, wow, isn't that neat? The cops showed up to the barn where the invisible man was sleeping. Oh, wow, all of these interesting story beats are happening before my eyes. I am engaged, and this is interesting to watch." None of that happened. For me, it was like, oh, wow, the farmer heard him breathing in the barn. That's boring. I guess the movie's going to end now. Oh, yeah, there's 5 minutes left.
You didn't have these same issues with Dracula?
Yes, I did. Dracula was a terrible narrative.
Had a non-ending as well? Okay.
Yes, I didn't say anything to the opposite of that. I'm not being inconsistent with my criticisms here. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, this movie's ending was narratively disinteresting. This movie also, the pacing, like what to my earlier point, I agree with you only insofar as when the movie is, there are sections of the movie time wise that the pacing is very good. The narrative pacing, which is pretty much the only pacing that we can talk about here, is very good. But then there are other that's not consistent throughout the entire film. There are large chunks of time, large relatively to the runtime of this movie, which is not very long, but relative to the runtime of this movie, like 10 minutes represents almost 10% of the films. That's a significant portion. There are, sequences of approximately 10 minutes where nothing is happening narratively, nothing is progressing narratively. We're just seeing sequences of the Invisible Man doing invisible things. And for me, that was boring. And so the movie's overall pacing suffered for that, because there were good parts and funny parts and interesting parts, but they were segregated from boring parts. And so the whole movie did not flow consistently in terms of its pace, did not progress the story consistently in terms of its pace.
I think all those sequences were there to progress the story. I don't think you have any appreciation for the chaos.
No, we didn't need to see him go and throw money around. That literally does nothing.
You need to see what kind of chaos he's causing in the community to appreciate why they need to stop him.
Well, okay, I'll grant you that. I'm not suggesting that those scenes serve no purpose. It's the length of time that those scenes took up. That's all. It's the pacing of it. I appreciated the sequences existing, but it was just how much time that those sequences took up. That for me personally, it pulled me out of the movie, because I found myself basically just staring at the screen, basically, being fully aware that I'm just watching a showcase of the Invisible Man doing Invisible Man things, as opposed to learning anything about the character.
Did you have
or
the same
story.
issue with his scene with Kemp in the car before he kills him?
No, because his scene with Kemp in the car, like, you mean when he's describing how he's going to kill him? That's his particular scene, or all the scenes when he?
No, the scene when Kemp is driving and thinks he's escaped, and then Jack is like, "I've been waiting in the car."
Yeah.
And now this is what I'm going to do.
No, because that scene, if any, like, it at the very least, it had like interesting dialogue, and it wasn't, and it wasn't obvious what was going to happen to me. I knew he was gonna, but like, for example, it was surprising to me that because for example, the Invisible Man strangles him, right? Begins to strangle him, but then he stops, right? And that was a subversion of my expectation, because I thought, okay, the Invisible Man said he was going to strangle him at 10 o'clock. He's shown up at 10 o'clock. He's starting to strangle him. Oh, wait, shit, he stopped strangling him. He didn't kill him. What's going on here? What was he going to do? And then he decides to push him in a car down a cliff and make him die that way, which was entertaining. But yeah, there were elements, there were interesting, engaging, intriguing elements in that scene. But yeah, him running around doing Invisible Man stuff for the most part was bereft of that. For the most part, again, I liked his singing. I liked his money. Yeah. I liked little, but again, those are little tidbits in the relatively longer sequence that I personally just felt was just not that engaging. I was like, yeah, he's running around being an Invisible Man. And when he walks out of the bank and nobody's like noticing this like floating till, I thought that was interesting.
I was more trying to figure out how they did that in 1933, because the movement was
but that movement existed across the board, like that smooth, like I thought, like when I guess there was like a piece of firewood that was moving at one point. Like there were a number of shots where objects were moving, and I couldn't tell if it was like some kind of sophisticated, like, invisible string.
I think that's for that shot though, because it was a moving shot that was moving with the thing that was moving, and like I couldn't see any traces of a string. And most other moving effects, I had a sense, or I felt like I could figure out maybe how it happened. But that was the one that got me. So that's mostly where my brain went. But no, I guess I don't want to take away from the point that you're making, because I don't think I disagree. I feel like I just wasn't as bothered by it, and the sequences didn't seem as long to me as you're describing them. To me, they were just blips on the radar. They were just like tiny things that happened in between the scenes that made this the like narrative powerhouse of a film that it is. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, it's almost like I can. Yeah, I definitely don't think that my experience is universal in that sense. Like, I don't think that anybody sitting down for an hour and 10-minute film is going to feel like notably bored, by 10 minutes at a time or whatever of these sequences per se. But it's it, it was one of those things that it was that combined. I think it was what it was I went into it knowing the runtime, right? I could see what it was in the player that I was watching it on. So like I came into it when you know it's going to be a short film,
right?
You expect something of the pace. I expect something of the pace, and I expect time to go fast. And the moment something is dragging, I'm even more sensitive to it. Like I love a long film. I love a long movie. So like, when it's not that I'm especially sensitive to slow pacing, but when when I know it's like an hour, basically an hour and 10 minutes, then it's that there's something happens there. I do become that much more sensitive to when there's anything in the movie that seems like it's dragging. And it's almost like if I were to take those parts out and have like a 40-minute movie or a 30-minute movie, like it's then I have to ask myself, okay, would that 30 or 40-minute film be
But like, would you have had the
good?
same reaction if you didn't know the runtime, if you just started watching the movie blindly?
That's what I'm saying. I'm suggesting that I would have been less. I would assume that I would have been less sensitive to it for sure. Because
I think like what you're describing is how I feel in the Avatar movies when they start flying on things or start swimming.
But it's reverse for you because you know that they're long films. I'm pretty sure the Avatar movies are long films, right?
Yeah, they're like
at least 2 hours. Yeah, they're
2 to 3 hours.
in 2 to 3 hours. Yeah. See, for me,
or I guess
like
I feel like for my viewing experience, knowing the overall runtime isn't a factor in how I feel about it. I'm just sitting there thinking this sequence is too long for this narrative. Like this is very much just James Cameron wanting to impress me with special effects, which I went to Avatar because I think that's kind of a similar version of what we see in this movie, where those sequences are very much obviously there to serve us special effects to impress the audience, as it were.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
Narrative, yeah,
it's of its time in a sense, right? Like the same way there are things like I would. That's maybe a very like apt comparison where in this film, a lot of the effects are, in part at least, presumably to impress the audience, to show off techniques and effects that are being pioneered, in this time. And similarly, in the original Avatar, there were a number of technologies in CGI land that were being pioneered for that film. And again, me watching, like I don't think the Avatars are great movies. I think there's a record of that on this channel.
Probably.
But I relate to liking to watch nice looking things, and I'll immerse myself. I'll watch a sequence of them flying through beautiful scenery, whatever, because I like to look at beautiful scenery, and
you don't like to look at invisible shenanigans
from the 1930s. It's not the most interesting thing. After I like, again, there were parts that were funny and interesting and entertaining, and I appreciated, like I said, I appreciated the choreography of it. Like that first when he runs out of the inn, that first inn, and the crowd parts for him, and all those little like details. Like I love that stuff. Like I was very much like, oh, that's really cool. But again, that at that moment I was it was like a meta appreciation, right? I was appreciating the choreography.
But you weren't able to appreciate the narrative. It was more so appreciating the craftsmanship of the film.
Yes, exactly. And again, I'll defend my position and say that like I don't fault the narrative, save for the one detail of how it ends with his capture, which I find uninteresting and weak, and the pacing of the film, but the actual beats of the story I thought were good, and I felt like it was an interesting story up until the ending. It was an interesting narrative, and I agree with you. The button, like after the resolution where he's captured, I agree with you that the button, that final sequence where he's invisible and then he slowly fades back into life as he dies, if you will. I thought that was really cool as well.
So then we really only disagree on the farm scene, mostly.
I don't even know if we disagree, really. I mean, we disagree on 2 points. We haven't resolved the madness thing. Like I think in both instances you give, I think from my perspective at least, you're just giving the film more credit than I would give it. Whereas in the farm scene, you're just more forgiving of what you should know is just a simple and just ultimately uninteresting like sequence of events, but you're forgiving it because it brings together the people who've been capturing him and all that stuff, which I acknowledge is
I just feel like it had to end somehow. So
for sure, everything has to end somehow. And again, there's who's to say that we could come up with a better ending? I think we could, but who's to say?
Right. I want to see actually how it ends in the book. I'm gonna.
It's an adaptation. I did not know that.
Well, yeah, no, that's another thing that's interesting about this movie specifically. I don't know this for sure, but I'm fairly certain that it is a book. Like I know that 100%. It was by H.G. Wells, also of the Time Machine. He did the Time Machine, right? Yeah, H.G. Wells, Time Machine. Yeah, that was him. We also did Island of Dr. Moreau as well. So this movie was made. I think he might have even still been alive. So like they had to secure the rights, and he was kind of protective of his work because the first film adaptation of Island of Dr. Moreau wasn't that good. It kind of took all the most superficial surface level elements of the story and turned it into a horror film without going into the social commentary that he was trying to weave into his actual book. And so my understanding with this movie is that they had a lot of script treatments submitted before it actually went into production. And what Universal initially was trying to do was just secure H.G. Wells's name as well as the title so that they could just make a movie about an invisible man. But he had final script approval rights or whatever built into his contract. So that led to this movie being fairly true to the book for the most part with a few differentiations. But I just think that's interesting compared to like my understanding of Dracula and Frankenstein is that those movies did what the Invisible Man pitched to do initially, which was they secured the name and the monster and like the core idea, but then just made their own thing. But this seemingly is pretty true to the book. So there we are. So anyway, I'm going to find out how the book ends. But also, look, we have friends here now. Only time will tell. Vince is here. Vince, come here.
Is Only Time Will Tell Vince?
Yeah.
Is Only Time Will Tell
that's his paranormal investigation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Only time will tell. I wonder what the significance of that phrase is.
Well, only time will tell, Alex. When he's here next, we'll ask him.
If we remember. Make a note.
Okay.
Jenny?
Kristen Zaz is here. Hello.
Invisible friends.
Jeanette, are you still driving, Jeanette?
Gentlewoman.
Honk honk.
Was Jeanette the driver?
I don't know.
Jeanette like to drive her family?
So. Yes.
Or does her family drive her?
Who's to say?
Jeanette is to say.
Jeanette, let us know who drives who. Bob says Cameron's Old Rose. Yes, she is in this. Old Rose from Titanic is the love interest in this movie.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
She's not as old in this movie.
She cleans up.
You mean she ages down nicely?
Yeah.
Oh, Jeanette, she's in the princess passenger seat. Nice.
Yes.
For now.
Okay,
hold on. So I'm going to look up The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. How does it end?
Anything else? Oh, Millie, door, coat. They're a little funny thing.
Actually, the book's ending is better.
Yeah.
So here we go.
All right,
Ruben shoots at Addy. I don't know how to pronounce his name because this character I don't think is in the movie. Then breaks into Kemp's house. The constables fend him off, and Kemp bolts for town. Oh yeah, Kemp gets to live in the novel. That's fun. Griffin nearly strangles the doctor, but is cornered, seized, and beaten by the enraged mob. And his last words are a cry for mercy. So I don't think there's a barn, but the mob. Well, still, it's kind of the same. The mob still closes in on him, but I guess in the movie, like it's one gunshot that does it, whereas in the book, it's a whole mob that like.
It's not one gunshot; it's like a couple.
It's a couple, but from like one guy as opposed to a whole mob of people like seemingly brutally beating him to death.
Yeah.
And actually, I would have preferred that ending.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it was less again Deus Ex Machina. It was more methodic. It was more like he fell into a trap, right? Where like the police like set up a trap at Kemp's house type thing, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing that I find the most narratively satisfying about the story that to me the movie does a decent job of conveying is like this is a guy who is drunk with power and then he flies too close to the sun. He doesn't think things through, like the more confident he gets, and then that's his ultimate downfall.
Because he's mad.
Yeah,
because the drug made him crazy.
Well, I'm not disputing that the drug in this movie makes him mad. Like I never disputed that. I've said I think it would be a stronger movie.
Oh, I see. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. I didn't.
I think I might have even said like, if I want to, I can choose to ignore that one sentence in that one scene.
Yeah, you made that point, but like, I can't do that because the movie doesn't make sense anymore. But yeah, because I was saying that the movie kind of starts off right off the gate with them doing pretty crazy stuff. So it's like a normal guy doesn't go from like a moral, smart scientist to like, I'm going to start laughing maniacally and strangling people, because I'm invisible all of a sudden.
Right.
And if they do, it's like, that was something wrong with them. That's not we can't learn from that. It's like the lesson we learned from there is like, don't make anyone invisible. They will go immediately crazy with power. Don't do that. Power corrupts. Invisibility power corrupts
maniacally. Yeah. And now this transitions into the next thing I want to talk about, which is more modern remakes of the Invisible Man story, because actually
there was Invisible Man Returns, right?
Well, there's a lot, like there were a lot of
not came out like a few years after that.
Yeah, there was Invisible Man Returns, there was Revenge of the Invisible Man, there was Invisible Woman, like
versus
but there was a remake recently with I almost said Invisible Moss, with Elizabeth Moss and evil Elon Musk. And then there was also Hollow Man.
What? There was a recent one that featured an evil Elon Musk?
Well, I don't think it was literally Elon Musk, but
there was like a
my understanding of that movie is that it's more so about her, and her boyfriend is the Invisible Man, and she's just like gotten out of a toxic relationship with him, and it's kind of a thinly.
Oh yeah, that's like in the last like 20 years or 15 years or something, right?
Right.
It's not that recent, is it?
No, it's really recent. The one you're thinking of is Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon. Probably.
Yes, Hollow Man.
Which again, I haven't seen that one either, but I think it's interesting that the more recent Invisible Man movies seem to shift the focus to the people around him and the people that are being tortured by him and his invisibility, as opposed to the actual character. And the Elizabeth Moss one I find particularly interesting, which I haven't seen, but what I was reading when the movie came out in the press releases and everything is that it was a metaphor for like people who are dealing with PTSD after being in toxic relationships, and just how other people might not necessarily believe them when they're saying that like they were abused by a significant other. I don't know if that's exactly what the movie is exploring, but kind of that concept of someone is being invisibly tortured by another person. I think that this.
Well, it's very direct, right? It's the boy who cried wolf, or the not to disparage the victim, but like it's very much like you can draw that parallel. It's like what happens. Not only do you have cases in everyday life where a victim may claim that they're being abused and nobody will believe them, but let's add on the fact that the person who's doing the abuse is invisible. So even if we did believe we'd be at a loss for words when we look to find this person and we don't see them, right?
We need to actually I want to find out more about that specific movie. I'm looking it up right now.
I was gonna say I was going to say something that's interesting is that all of these monster movies that we've been watching and these pseudo horror films, at least we, made the point that The Invisible Man was marketed as a horror film, very much different than modern sensibilities when it comes to showing the monster, right? All of these films that we've watched, Hunchback, Dracula, Invisible Man now, probably the same thing. It'll be consistent with Frankenstein. We see the monster's journey. And we see the monster's experience, and we see the monster kind of relatively immediately and up close, and kind of we live with the monster, as opposed to a modern monster / horror film, which is very much typically about keeping them in the shadows, around the corner, in the dark, in mystery. Yeah. So because you were making me think about that when you were describing how this more contemporary film focuses on the people around the Invisible Man, not the Invisible Man so much himself. And it just kind of got me thinking there again, how this, like me watching this movie, I got like, I can pull myself kind of further back and try to appreciate what might have been scary or terrifying or chilling from this movie in the 1930s to an extent. But there is really that barrier where it's like, this movie is so funny and in your face with everything that like, it's the kind of a bridge too far.
I think part of the reason that these movies were so successful and have had such a legacy is largely because of the characters that they were putting on screen in the monsters. Like, it was humanizing them in a way that I think still holds up for better. Well, I was about to say for better or for worse. No, still holds up.
Well, they're the most interesting parts
of the actual movie might be. Like, I think Dracula, for example, is a really good example of a great monster and a great character in a subpar or a mid film. But then, what were you going to say?
Well, just that they're for the most part, again, caveat with Renfield, but for the most part, they're the most interesting aspects of the film are the monsters. So again, as opposed, like in a modern movie, we would be like, what's keeping us kind of in one of the things that's keeping us kind of glued to the screen is to find when are we gonna see it? When are we gonna find out what it is?
Like that shift happened probably in the 70s or so with the slasher movies, like with Halloween, which was probably the first one. This isn't my forte, so I don't know for sure, but I think Halloween might have been the first movie of that style where the threat was like, or maybe even Jaws actually, where it's more about what's unseen and then you just kind of see glimpses of it. And then you get more people who are like slashers in masks like Jason, or, well, I was about to say Freddy, but he's not in a mask. He just has scars because he was burnt or something by the parents. I think I kind of want to see Nightmare on Elm Street.
Wasn't Freddy a supernatural creature?
Yeah, he was a supernatural creature. But anyway, I think the shift happened in late 20th century to kind of change what the horror conventions were, where it was less about the allure of the charming monster and more about, let's just see how this unseen force is terrorizing people that we can relate to. So actually, I guess that's a better way to phrase it. I feel like now horror movies and monster movies are more about the audience relating to the people being victimized. And these movies, I think we almost relate more so with the monsters. At least that's probably the case with Quasimodo and Hunchback. Dracula, I didn't really relate to Dracula, but he was the only interest. No, Renfield was the most interesting person to watch. Frankenstein will be interesting to continue this discussion with, because the monster's like the only good part of that really boring, horribly made movie. But Bride of Frankenstein, that's an incredible movie. Sorry, I want to continue this discussion, but yes, we will still play the game if you want to play along in the chat. Jeanette said, if I remember this movie accurately at all, it was ridiculous in the gestures and actions, but he also came across as real mean. Yeah, he is. He's so mean. He's so aggressive. And the first time I watched this movie, which again was only 3 years ago, but there was something to me that was so unsettling and chilling about his first appearance in the bar when he just says, like, I want a room. And that was scarier to me than anything Bela Lugosi did. Because again, I think what we're learning in these constant chats is that really the monsters are humans. I was trying to sound smart, but I'm also
the monster or the man. Who is the monster?
Who is the monster and who is the man? Sing the bell.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Just to wrap up our last point. I think it's an interesting question. Maybe not immediately obvious. Which method is scarier? Like, I'm tempted to say that like a modern approach to horror and tension and whatnot is ultimately more effective and truer to what truly terrifies us. But I think there may be a decently strong argument that, there is that if you can make something horrifying while showing everything, that's maybe even more, or just again, different and perhaps more effective. Or maybe the ultimate answer is that they're just different.
No, I think the perfect movie that bridges them is the Brendan Fraser Mummy, or even Mummy. Because I
love the Mummy.
So do I. It's a great movie, as is the Mummy Returns.
I don't think that it's a perfect blend of it is.
I think you get the characterization for the Mummy, for Imhotep, that you get with the classic Universal monster movies, but then you also get the focus on the victims in Brendan Fraser and
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it is.
And there's a ton of his mumminess is either unseen or really unsettling to look at as he's like going back into human form. So I do think it's a mix-ish of old conventions and newer conventions. It's not a direct one-to-one, but I do think it's a than most other movies.
Yeah, I was reacting more so to say that I don't think it's an especially horrifying film, but in terms of representing that blend, I definitely can see it now that you pointed that out.
You weren't horrified when the bugs crawled up under the skin and they had to cut it out?
Oh yeah, no, it is it's a gross film, but it's not it's a different there's a difference between the and again, I think I love the Mummy, and I think it does a really good job. Let's just watch the Mummy.
But sorry, keep going.
But no, it's one of those things where part of me is so, it might just be that I'm so familiar with it, and it's such a I grew up with it, watching it as a kid and stuff, and such a yeah, it's like such a staple or classic, or it's again familiar that like it's hard for me to kind of fully acknowledge how maybe effective it is at the horror. But it certainly has the like those that when the guy loses his glasses and he can't see, and like the movie does effective like horror. It just it might be this like
It
the
is.
one and only perfect blend of like it shows us the full mummy. It shows us kind of at every phase of his rejuvenation. We see the way, you know, we get that full frontal, and you know, we
Oh,
got yeah.
if this marathon could have gone on longer, like if I wasn't going to Disney World for a week and a half,
Lame-o.
I know. Oh, that's the first time I've mentioned it on the channel. Now they
Is
know.
it?
Yeah,
Well, what we was definitely alluded to
in the Whack
pseudo
Museum video.
indirect.
No, but we
Yeah.
rewound and we bleeped it out, so they didn't hear it.
Oh, did we?
Well, I mean, on screen, you did say
Yeah.
you could not go to Disney World. I'm like, well, that didn't. I haven't announced it on the channel
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
Okay, let's rewind.
All
Yeah,
right.
but this is the first time I've said it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say if that wasn't happening, it would have been really cool. And we could even still do this at some point to compare like the Mummy movie from the 30s, which is part of this collection, with the Brendan Fraser Mummy.
Was the Brendan Fraser Mummy supposed to be some kind of remake or reimagining?
Yeah, it was a remake of this.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, you know, that's the thing. Universal, like their claim to fame and what really was the foundation of their studio becoming or not becoming, but maintaining their success were all these monster movies, because Dracula was relatively successful. Then Frankenstein was a huge box office hit. Then that's when they realized, well, they also had Hunchback kind of in their back pocket as well. They were like, people want monster movies. Let's keep making monster movies. That's how Invisible Man happened, because James Whale, who directed this, did Frankenstein. And they were like, well, do a sequel to Frankenstein. He was like, no. Then they said, how about Invisible Man? He was like, okay. And then he did do a sequel to Frankenstein. He did Bride of Frankenstein, which is the best Universal monster movie. I'm not just saying that as a matter of opinion. Like that's the
only second to the Mummy.
Critical. Only second to the Mummy. I haven't watched the original Mummy in full.
Oh
really.
yeah, we weren't talking about
it. No, I saw part of it in high school, but it's not great. But anyway, yeah, Universal, they have their monsters, and I think the Brendan Fraser Mummy was them just going back to that, and then they tried to like with the Tom Cruise thing. That's when they tried to actually turn it into a full shared universe franchise. But that
the what was it? The Dark Universe?
It's the Dark Universe.
Yeah. Dooku. Yeah. Dark Universe. Cinematic Universe. The Dooku.
Isn't Russell Crowe in that movie as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
He is in a Dooku movie. It's in which
there's more than one Dooku movie?
Yeah, aren't the isn't that in the DC universe now?
Those are different universes. Because DC is Warner
Bros. No, in Black Adam, I think Russell Crowe is Jekyll and Hyde.
Is he? No.
I think so.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And weren't they supposed to be? Like, isn't Morbius and all that?
I don't think so.
Black Adam, Russell Crowe. That's not how you spell Russell.
I don't think there would be any crossover, because like Marvel obviously has their thing with their cinematic universe, and DC has their thing, and Universal, all they have.
What's chat saying?
What? Oh,
chat.
He is, and what? No, Kristen.
Russell Crowe, Jekyll. How do you spell that?
Jekyll.
Kyll. Jekyll and Hyde. What? Oh, it's in the Tom Cruise Mummy. That's what it is.
Yeah, the Tom Cruise.
Okay. No, but we weren't talking. I mean, anyway, it wasn't clear to me. To me, we were talking about like the Mummy.
Yeah, no, but Russell Crowe isn't Jekyll and Hyde in the DC.
No, he's in the in the Mummy remake or whatever.
No, this is another case where we agree, but we seemingly disagree, even though we agree.
Well, I don't know. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, no, you're right. We don't.
Yeah.
We do though.
We don't agree.
No, we don't.
No.
So yeah, I want to watch both Mummy movies and compare them now.
Oh, the original and then the Brendan Fraser.
And then the Brendan Fraser. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sorry, Fraser, because that's how his name is.
Fraser, yeah,
Fraser. Yeah.
Rafe.
Fraser. Rafe Fiennes, even though it's spelled
Rafe, not Rafe.
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 Yeah. Rafe.
Yeah.
Rafe.
No, not Rafe. Rafe.
TH and F sound very similar. Rafe.
But not the same.
Rafe Fiennes.
Yeah.
It's also difficult because it's followed by another F sound. Rafe Fiennes. It's easy to just do like.
Well, you can just do one. We just Ray Fiennes.
Ray Fiennes.
We've had this discussion before.
That just sounds like you're saying Ray.
That's what I was saying.
Fiennes.
That's what I criticized you way back when you taught me the pronunciation of his name. I made that exact same point, saying you're just saying Ray Fiennes.
Oh, yeah. And now here we are.
Here we are.
Look at us. Who'd have thought? Not me. Yeah, do you want to play the game? Or
I guess.
Also, when I thought I might have been doing this by myself, I queued this up so that I could rank all the Universal monsters, which we could do right now really quickly from like
sure, even though not familiar with all of them.
I mean, neither am I, but we can just kind of go off of what we know of them as monsters, like the type of monster. Like,
where's Quasimodo?
He's not there. He does because he's not a monster.
He's not here. He's not here.
So let's start with Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is essentially a mermaid, evil mermaid.
I mean, that sounds badass.
It does.
Sounds S tier. It probably isn't. It's probably D tier. So I would say, if I'm being like rational, I'll give it like middle of the road B, but like or S for the lulz, for the memes.
No. Neither of us seen it. Let's make it C. No, you said
okay. Is there a between? Can we do like CB? Like,
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, how many are there? We have 1, 2, 3. We have 5 tiers, and how many monsters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 monsters. So let's say we want to have like a top 4, and then everything else is D.
All right.
Okay. So for now, because nothing's going to trump him yet, he can be S, and then we'll move him down.
Okay.
Oh, let's bring in Dracula. Better or worse than Black Lagoon Creature?
I mean, he's iconic, right? So he probably has to be better.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't care for him in the movie.
No, but better than this swamp thing that neither
again, Evil Mermaid or whatever. That's pretty. But again, okay.
Yeah, I've seen Creature from the Black Lagoon, but it was probably 20 years ago. What I remember thinking was, I'm really disappointed in how boring this movie is. And it was just a lot of people running away from like Amazonian swamp mermaid. And it was kind of actually...
They're Amazonian swamp mermaids?
Yeah, he's an Amazonian swamp mermaid. But it was kind of like this
Amazonian?
Movie.
That makes me think of Amazonian women. And now I feel betrayed.
It's okay if you're attracted to the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Well, I agree, but I'm not attracted to that JPEG.
Well, not yet. You will be when you see the movie. But that movie is a lot of just underwater photography that I think, kind of like the invisibility sequences in this movie, that was the main attraction. Actually, no, I don't want to compare that because I like the invisibility sequence. I think they serve the story. But
yeah, no, it's like old school Godzilla when they're just like people running and they show the creature hitting a building and screaming and whatever.
Like, there's not much narrative going on with this guy. The creature though is really cool. Creature's really cool.
Okay.
Jeanette, how dare you? Invisible Man last. We love the Invisible Man. No. Okay, well, hold on. Invisible Man. Let's bring him because his name has been dropped.
Oh, he's better than Drac.
He's better than Drac. Okay,
I mean, he's not more iconic than Dracula, but better than his. I like them better than Bela Lugosi. And
I agree. So for now, there we are. Yeah. We like this.
Renfield's top tier, but he's not a monster. Well, he's kind of a monster. He should have been on this list.
But... Yeah, I know, but no, he's not the face of Universal horror. Okay, let's bring in classic 1920s Phantom of the Opera.
He looks hideous. He looks like he has fangs.
I know. Well, right now, let's just talk about the Phantom as a character and as a monster in general. Like, not this one specifically.
Yeah.
There's also the Claude Rains Phantom. There's the Andrew Lloyd Webber Phantom. As a character, do we rank him above or below Invisible Man?
As a monster, it's difficult, right? Because he's so sympathetic in a lot of ways, right? And not to the point where we forgive him utterly or completely, but we sympathize. You know, he's deformed, he's shunned from society, he's isolated. So
is he more or less justified in his monstrosities and in his actions than the Invisible Man?
I'd say he's way more justified. But again, not to say that he is justified, but comparatively, the Invisible Man is the only motive for his monstrosity is that he's crazy. So
right. No, you're right. That's not as interesting. So I think the Phantom trumps the Invisible Man. So let's bump them all down. There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Phantom's better, but not a better monster. But
not a better monster. No. Okay. The Mummy.
Again, is this Emotep?
It's just the Mummy. It's just the idea of a mummy coming to life.
Just the wrapped up. Hey, why can't we see his face? Whose picture is that?
That's
Is that,
Boris Karloff. He also plays Frankenstein's monster. So he's the mummy.
is that does he look like that when he's in the Mummy?
Well, in the Mummy, I think it's a similar thing where he gets to be more human as it goes on.
Oh, interesting.
So this might be towards the end. Well, I don't know.
Does he still go around collecting people? Like, does he get regenerate by eating people?
I don't think so.
Okay, well then D.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't need people. You D.
You don't need people. Oh wow, the comments are coming in strong here. Phantom is C grade because he's not a monster.
Yeah, see, I would have, like, I'm with you, Jeanette. I wouldn't have made him like a top tier monster. I think as a character, he's interesting.
Also, I guess that's an important distinction. Are we ranking them based on character overall or monster?
No, just monster. This is a monster ranking.
Okay, you're right. You're right.
So Phantom's not a monster.
Actually, you're right. He's not a monster.
Yeah, he's not a monster.
Well, hold on.
He does monster
things. I think Invisible Man is more monster than him.
Yeah, well, he should be C or D. Like he's not a monster. He's a great character. He's just not a monster.
Let's put him in C and let's move the mermaid thing down.
Okay.
Let's put Dracula A for now.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go Bride of Frankenstein. Now we haven't watched her movie yet.
No.
It is, and I'm willing to be proven wrong, but I think it is the best movie, but is she the best monster in the lineup? She doesn't do much in the movie. I'll tell you this right now. Spoiler for next week.
Yeah, what's the most monstrous thing
she does? She just shows up in the last 2 minutes when they bring her to life, and that's it.
Does she fuck somebody up?
No.
Beep.
No. She's like dismayed at her own existence.
See, that's superhuman and not very monstrous. So I'd say she's like CD tier. Phantom at least.
I can't put her in D. I can't put her in D.
Okay. Well,
but Phantom may be better. No,
they're together. Let the Phantom and the Bride. They're together. They'll sow the seeds of jealousy for Frankenfurter coming up one day.
How is Creature D? Okay, well, Creature is D. Wait, why is Creature D? Because neither of us have really seen the movie, and.
Well, because you kind of had a few criticisms of the film. You were like, it's boring. It's mostly just a bunch of shots of the creature or whatever.
That's true. But at the time, I was more in the headspace of character over monster. Because now if we're just looking at monster, Amazonian mermaid man is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Might be S tier.
He can fill the
B. Okay. All right.
What's this? Okay, but again, Chris makes an important point. What makes monster? Phantom does behave more monstrously than the Bride.
He does, but and on if it were just the two of them,
that's true. Actually,
I would
bump her down. Yeah, no, because the ultimate goal is we want to have a top 4.
And he behaves more monstrously, but she's a literal compilation of body parts, isn't she?
She is, yeah.
So it's a again, not to say that just because you're made up of body parts makes you a horrible thing. But I'm just saying, we have various definitions here. I would swap either or. I would either keep Phantom at the bottom, and be like, you're just a terrible man.
If I was coming up against them in a dark alley, I think I'd be more scared with the Phantom than I would the Bride.
Yeah. Okay. Valid.
Yeah.
Valid.
Okay. The Wolfman. This is I've never seen this movie.
Me neither. I mean, the Wolfman sounds cool.
Yeah, it's the idea of a werewolf, basically.
Yeah, werewolves are badass.
They are.
Pretty crazy. Like they'll tear you up.
I feel like he's more monstrous than the Invisible Man.
He'll bite you. Invisible Man wouldn't even bite you. He'd strangle you, but he won't bite you. The Wolfman will bite you.
So hold on. So I think we need to bump all these down.
Did you just delete one of them?
No. Okay. I put him in top and then brought it all down.
Mm-hmm. Can you make Kristen Zaza's comment disappear now? It's overstayed its welcome.
Soul reside, Alex. Point to the body part you'd have to lose to become a monster. Yeah, valid point.
It is valid, but my point is just that there are a variety of definitions, right? It's neither simple nor definitive, right? We're doing our best here on this list. That's right. I'm not wearing pants, so that's a good call, Jeanette. But yeah, that's the part I'd have to lose to become a monster. It's the only thing keeping me connected to humanity. Are my
let's say, I had to privatize last week's video because of your lewd actions, Alex.
My lewd actions?
Yes,
my lewd actions.
I was just
who bent over To
I was
whose
becoming
region?
invisible. I was hiding.
You clearly leaned over in a suggestive manner.
Okay, no.
What was I supposed to do?
You were supposed to say, Matt, where did you go?
Yeah,
we must be doing the Invisible Man next
A
week.
likely story.
Anyway,
a
look,
likely
Frankenstein's
story.
monster. Let's talk about him.
I mean, what an interesting, crazy, interesting character, right? Like you're cobbled together, you're turned, the on switch is flipped on, all of a sudden, there you are.
And it's like, what am I?
Yeah, the simultaneous newborn with the parts and intellect of a longborn, and it's like, what a mind F,
Indeed.
as we say.
Indeed.
On
I mean,
this
it
family
is
channel.
like, he is the first monster, really. Well, not the first monster, but like one thing that I read in probably a Facebook meme or shareable Facebook post was that Mary Shelley is the only person that like created a Halloween monster. Most other Halloween monsters, like stereotypical ones like vampire, witch, whatever, those are based on like folklore, traditions, whatever. Whereas she actually sat down one day and thought, okay, let me create something that's terrifying. Here it is, person cobbled together. So,
well, certainly, certainly some folklore had similar origination, just lost to the annals of time. But
similar.
Well, I mean, some folklore probably originated by an individual intentionally trying to devise something, terrifying, as opposed to a more, some certainly came about potentially more organically, i.e., I heard a movement in the bush, my imagination ran wild, I told my friends, and we all sat around in the fire, and we came up with some, horrific monster that must have been jiggling
I think the idea of somebody taking multiple parts from like corpses, sewing them together, and then infusing life into that, I think that's a pretty unique idea.
Oh yeah, no, but every idea is unique until it, for the first time, right? But yeah, all I was saying was, because you kind of described, Mary Shelley as like, she was like maybe the first person once Halloween. I don't know if Halloween was already an established tradition at the time. I don't know what we're talking about there. But yeah, I'm not familiar with that history. But yeah, like you were just describing how, like, she kind of, as opposed to there being these sort of traditions, these cultural stories and folklore, that she kind of sat down and kind of devised this intentionally crafted scary story and character. And I'm just saying, I was trying to drawing parallels where some folklore certainly has emerged in a more collaborative way, let's say culturally collaborative way, where groups of societies, cultures have kind of come together amongst themselves and come up in the collective consciousness with different sort of tales and what do they call them, like parables, if you will, like just stories to like shape their society and culture. Other folklore and other still cultural traditions may have originated in a more similar way to the way Mary Shelley did it, where it's like more of an individual kind of like, oh, maybe I can come up with this story to get what I want, and then it just kind of ran off. Like, oh, I'll tell people that there are vampires in my attic that are these horrible blood-sucking creatures that I can, I don't know, get more wheat from the king or something, because that's how that works.
Find me citations and we'll talk.
Lost to the annals of time.
Yep, of course. Sound like a dirty word, but anyway, here we are. Okay, Frankenstein monster versus Wolfman. Who in this matchup would you give your vote to?
I mean, the Wolfman's more cool. Frankenstein's monster seems more interesting as a character. We've been down this path before. Right. As a monster, and given that Frankenstein's monster, like one of the, I haven't read the book, but the play that I saw, like the whole, the crux of it, the vital theme, the essence, the précis, if you will, is that Frankenstein's monster is like one of the most, if not the most human character.
So I guess.
So Frankenstein D.
No, but all monsters are a reflection of humanity in some way.
Yes.
So like, what to you is more scary? The idea of
a werewolf or a body man?
No, I'm looking at let Matt talk.
Okay.
what's to you is a scarier idea in terms of what each monster represents. Like Frankenstein to me, or rather the creature represents somebody being thrown into the world absolutely unprepared and then being shunned and having to figure out what life is while basically being like a
That's just called being born.
Yeah. So being born, or you have the Wolfman, which is like having external forces basically put you at odds with your own ability to govern your own actions and your memory. So losing total control of your physicality and like your psychosis and just giving into the moon as it
yeah,
were. So total
and
loss
the consequences of which could be as horrendous as you waking up to your family and loved ones torn apart.
Yeah, you're right. That's scarier. That's scary.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, what's scarier? Frankenstein monster being born, or a human
He's just misunderstood,
who has no inhibitions, like who can
human who has no inhibitions. Crazy Invisible Man is going to strangle you and rape you.
You're right.
He even says, I can rape.
He's
going to rape.
That was glossed over. You don't have to say that word though. You don't have to say that. Demonic.
I know it's you don't off. Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. So, blood-sucking creature that will take your life and make you join his forces, or being born.
No, yeah, blood-sucking. Being born it's a wrap. We all get born. We're all Frankenstein, so now, baby.
See, I think the creature from the Black Lagoon is interesting because this is the first one, and actually kind of the only one in this entire list that doesn't have so much of a human connection. This is us like up against nature. I think the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Why is it Amazonian?
I don't know. That's just where it takes place. I think it's like it's fear of the unknown, fear of like it's the Godzilla thing, or like the King Kong thing. It's like, what are there things in the natural world that are bigger and stronger than us that we haven't come across yet?
Yeah, that's scary. It's like gamma ray bursts from black holes.
Yeah, scarier than being born.
Way scarier.
Okay. Is this our list?
Probably. I mean, we can do a last minute like meme and make the creature of the Black Lagoon S tier, but other than that, this is probably the list.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
This is not how I thought it would go.
No, this is probably a pretty distinct, pretty unique monster ranking.
I don't think anyone would rank the Universal monsters this way.
No, I think we accomplished the mission.
We did.
I think we did what we set out to do.
We did. Actually, it's pretty good for the game that we have this here, because
this wasn't the game.
This wasn't the game. No. We have to play the game now, and especially because people in the comments want the game.
So I thought this was the game. We pick the tier, and they get to comment on our.
No. This wasn't the game.
Okay.
So how the game is going to work is I'm going to give you the name of an
wants to be a millionaire. Okay.
I'm going to give you the name of an actor who played at least one Universal monster.
Yeah.
You have to tell me which monster or monsters they played. Okay. All right. Here we go. Hold on. So get something right away.
Terrible. Yeah. Terrible.
Okay. And people in the comments, play along. So the first one. Boris Karloff. Tell me, which Universal monster or monsters did Boris Karloff play?
Schnitzel. Boris Karloff. You've spoken about Boris Karloff a lot. Oh, I know one. Don't know the others. And
and I'm keeping score for the people in the chat as well.
All right.
Okay.
I have my answers.
Answer, please. Dracula, and what else did you say?
Mike Karloff's dad.
Who's Mike Karloff? Oh. Well, no, we were looking for Frankenstein. Well, actually, no, we were looking for Frankenstein's monster, so nobody got that right.
Didn't he also play Dracula at one point?
No.
He didn't really?
I don't.
Didn't Bella have? Doesn't he have a line in that movie that he hates Karloff because Karloff did?
No, he hates Karloff because everyone compared Dracula to Frankenstein's monster.
Oh, okay. That's just my ignorance.
Karloff.
And I just assumed.
Well, no, let's find out.
Well,
Dracula.
I mean, the only reason I guessed that was because I heard like that line.
I don't think he was. So anyway, no one gets a point. No one gets a point for that one. All right. Next is again, remember everyone, Frankenstein's monster. He also played the Mummy in the original The Mummy. All right.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that too.
Yeah. Okay, next. Here we go. Hold on. Create a banner.
You haven't pre-created these banners?
No. Colin Clive.
Colin Clive, what a name. It's like Owen Clive, but different. Colin Clive. Colin.
You know what I did, but technicalities are important.
It's true. Were you here? Colin Clive. Colin Clive. Let's just send it. Let's just do all of the above. What's that creature? What's that creature?
I will say that this is going to be simultaneously the easiest and the hardest one for people to get.
Okay, I got my answers.
Okay, go.
Creature of the Black Lagoon and Phantom.
All right. In the chat, we have the Mothman, Frankenstein's monster, Creature of the Black Lagoon. We were actually looking for Dr. Frankenstein. Colin Clive played Doctor.
It's a good name for the actor who played Dr. Frankenstein.
Right? And also, he was in the running to, or not even in the running, he was offered the Invisible Man. And then he said no, because I think he had other stuff. I don't know. Anyway, next, Claude Rains.
Claude Rains was the insufferable man.
Yeah.
Who's the insufferable man, though? Have we seen that movie yet? I don't think. Hey, just lost a connection there for a bit. We're back though. Okay.
Welcome back. You didn't miss much.
Yeah, no.
Claude Rains was the.
What else? Oh yeah, he said he did other things.
Reduced to madness.
Claude Rains
was also.
What else did Claude Rains do?
Was this? Matt is the insufferable man.
Oh
for the
yeah,
Frankenstein's monster technicality. You're not wrong.
And,
okay, let's see. Let's see.
All right, the Invisible Man and Phantom.
You're correct. He was the Invisible Man, and you get 2 points, Alex.
Woohoo!
You're in the lead.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! All right, hold on. Keeping score. Next. Some of these are too easy.
For you.
Well, also Claude Rains. Come now.
Yeah, but that's got to be the easiest.
Bela
Lugosi. Oh, that's a
I know.
head scratcher. Well, yeah, that
you can do it.
Did he do anything else though? Is the question. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm just gonna say the one thing that I know.
Okay.
I don't think.
Let's go.
Yeah, Dracula.
Yeah, you're correct. It's Dracula and only Dracula.
Okay.
Yeah. And Kristen got it too.
If his facial structure looked more similar to the Wolfman's makeup or whatever, I would have potentially thrown in a Wolfman. They look kind of similar. He played Alan's friend in that movie.
What's that movie?
Ed Wood.
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Plan 9 from Outer Space. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plan 9. Was it Plan 9 or Planet 9?
Plan 9. It was Plan 9 from Outer Space. Yeah. Next.
That's an interesting, yeah. I wonder what Bela Lugosi's filmography is, if it's just Dracula and whatever Kristen said, White Zombie.
No, he played vampires in a lot of movies to capitalize on the Dracula thing, except they weren't legally allowed to be named Dracula, but like he was basically Dracula.
Yeah.
Other movies. Okay. Gloria Holden.
Sounds like Glory Hole. I'm assuming Gloria Holden played the one female character.
Well, there are also characters who aren't on this grid.
All right. Such as?
I can't tell you. You're not going to get this one. So just guess already.
So it's not the bride. Okay, well, let me just.
Oh, well, maybe it is, and you're not going to get.
Well, I'll write one more down.
Okay. Gloria Holden is a great drag name.
That's what I said. Okay, what's her name?
Come now.
And then one more. Okay.
I feel like the only person who might get this is Kristen.
Frankenstein's Bride, Anak Sunamun, i.e. Emotep's gal, or Mrs. Dracula.
Mrs. Oh, Alex, you were so close with one of those meme
Elvira?
answers. No, she played the title role in Dracula's Daughter.
Oh, there's a movie called Dracula's Daughter?
Apparently there's a movie called Dracula, which is in the Universal Monsters franchise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next. Lon Chaney.
Oh, we've heard that name before.
We have.
But can we remember what it's related to?
That's the game.
Oh, maybe. Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can. Then
But was there anything else that he did?
King Kong.
I wonder if he played the Wolfman too. I'm just gonna guess. Quasimodo and Wolfman.
Quasimodo is correct.
Wolfman.
He also played Phantom and Hunchback. So Kristen got that.
Oh, okay.
Oh wait, it's not a trick question, Vince. Although the next one's kind of a trick question. Hold on. Lon Chaney Jr. is next.
Is this a trick because Lon Chaney went back in time and slept with his mother to make himself, and so he technically is both Lon Chaney and Lon Chaney Jr.?
That's exactly it. No.
That's a shame.
I know.
Lon Chaney Jr. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. And I'm gonna say that's it. Yeah.
Is that what you're gonna say? Okay.
Yeah. All right, I'm ready.
Okay, let's go.
Phantom / Wolfman, and
he was the Wolfman. Very good.
Yeah.
Not the
this
Phantom.
is an easy game. You just hedge your bets and put all the names down each time. No,
well,
but I haven't been doing that.
I will say none of them played more than 2, so I'm gonna instate a rule now that you can't guess more than 2.
Okay.
Here we go. Moving on.
It's a good rule.
Okay, create a banner. Elsa Lanchester.
Okay. Again.
I also wonder why Universal never made a Bigfoot movie.
Or Bride of Bigfoot.
Exactly.
All right. I have my answers, but I'll give chat another 10 seconds.
No. No.
All right.
Are you going to
Frankenstein Bride and Mrs. Dracula?
There's no Mrs. Dracula.
There's got to be a Mrs. Dracula.
There's no Mrs. Dracula.
Are you kidding me? All these years?
Oh, no, you're right. There were a bunch of Mrs. Draculas at the beginning, those ladies who came out of it. So, no, you're right. But
so she was one of those.
Okay, she wasn't, but she was Bride of Frankenstein. So
nice.
There you go.
Victoria.
Yes. Next. Banners. Hold on. Create a banner. Normally I do this in advance. It's much easier.
I know. How do you
Rico
say
Browning. I don't know. I just copied and pasted it.
that? Rico?
Sure.
Rico?
Rico Browning.
Rico.
Ricola.
Riku Browning. Raiku. Riku Browning.
Roku.
No, we don't pronounce I's as O's, Matthew.
Oh no, Roku. It was making a joke at the expense of this man's name. Because Roku is a brand of streaming devices.
That's not a funny joke.
I thought it was funny. You're laughing.
Okay. So okay. And what else? That's it. All right, I got my answer.
Okay, go.
Black Lagoon. Because that was the
Yes.
only one left.
How did you know that?
We haven't had him yet. We didn't get a
Okay.
Black Lagoon actor.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, he was the underwater Black Lagoon creature. So yeah,
There was a difference between the underwater and the on the surface.
yeah.
That's
Because all the
fun.
underwater stuff was shot underwater, so they needed someone who could hold their breath.
They
And
shot underwater in the 30s.
might have been the 40s.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I'm
Yeah.
not impressed.
Yeah, yeah.
Not impressed. Just
Uh,
joking. That's pretty impressive still.
I know. And
I
he
thought
held
underwater filming was invented in like
the 80s.
the 80s. Yeah.
I know. Okay, and the final one. And
Wait,
actually,
what?
this can just be the bonus question. How many points do you want to wager, Alex?
How many points do I have?
I think that's a good question.
All of them except for one, just in case
Okay.
I lose.
You have 7.
6. I'll wager 6.
Kristen has 3. Vince has 0. Jeanette has 3.
Fine. I'll wager 4.
No, you're wager. Oh, you're gonna wager 4. Okay.
So worst case, we're all tied. Is that my? Do I have 6 or 7?
I don't know. You have 6.
Oh shit! Whatever.
Kristen's betting it all. Here we go. All right, here we go.
Carlos Villarias. Carlos Villarias.
Villarreal, yes.
Villarias. This is how you say it in Carlos's tongue. I don't know what his tongue is actually.
Vince has gone all in.
Vincent Villarias. Okay. Oh, I know what this is.
No, you don't. No.
I assume it is.
No.
This.
If you get it, I'll not impressed. I'll be like very proud of you if you get this, Alex.
Well, okay. If it isn't, well, okay. If I get this, I won't be very proud, but I'll be happy to appreciate your pride.
Okay. So let's wait and see what the chat says. Jeanette has guessed The Mummy. Kristen has said Frollo. Alex? Oh.
Oh.
And then said the Chupacabra.
I'm saying it's Hispanic Dracula.
It's Hispanic Dracula.
Victori.
You got it. You
Of
win.
course I got it. It was all in the name.
11. You have 11. You won with 11 points.
11. Nice.
Yes,
Nice.
he's alternate movie Dracula. Well done.
Thank you.
I saw
Thank
the
you.
light bulb go off. I'm impressed you remembered that I told you.
Oh, it's on. I think of nothing else. I
Good.
think of nothing else. I still we need to see it.
I know. And again, it's great. It's better than English language Dracula.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
Not that it would take a lot.
Yeah.
Also,
All right.
yes.
Well, that's it. We're done now.
All right.
Well,
Well,
thank you for watching, everyone.
Yeah. This was fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully we made sense. I know with the two of us, we tended to like, there were definitely periods where we kind of spoke over each other. We also just kind of rambled a bit, I think.
Right.
And coherency is probably difficult to find. But hopefully,
Well, we understood what.
well, we understood. Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Like, it's kind of like between us, I think we kind of we got somewhere interesting, productive. But yeah.
That's all it takes.
well,
Yeah.
Qualifier, Jeanette. You guys were still competing, but yes, it is interesting to note that when my face is the only one here next to Matt's, that mysteriously I win. I feel like there's a bias.
It's a very
Anyway,
Pokeroo moment. It's like only when
Pokeroo.
you're not too young. You should know who Pokeroo is. You're a Canadian.
Pippi Longstocking?
No, from Polka Dot Door.
Oh no.
Okay.
Yeah, that I point to the soul, Alex. Is that how is that a Pokeroo thing, or
No.
is that just we're still not done yet?
Okay.
I mean, Kristen, we can chat if you want to
How
hop
many
on.
body
And talk
parts
about
have to
the
be
soul.
lost before you lose your soul? That's
Yeah,
actually
no,
a
it's an
question that's
interesting
examined
discussion.
in the ship analogy from WandaVision.
Oh, you mean Theseus's ship?
Yeah, the ship of Theseus.
It's
Are you
less
familiar
about a
with the metaphor?
soul. Well, I guess yeah.
Yeah.
It's more about I guess actually it originates in.
No, I have a video
mythology,
about
right?
the ship of Theseus and how it connects to the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz.
That's cool.
Yeah,
How
because
does it
the whole thing with the Tin Man is that in the book, at least, they don't really touch on this in the movie. In the book, he was a human, but then his axe got enchanted or cursed by a witch that was into him, but he wasn't having any of it because she was a witch. She was like, well, if you won't love me, you won't love anyone. And then she enchanted the axe so he would lop off body parts one at a time. And every time something got lopped off, he would go and get a prosthetic made by the tinsmith until eventually his entire body had been replaced by pieces of tin. So then it was like, are you the same person? Are you the same soul that you were when you were all flesh and blood? Or at what point did you become someone who is devoid of a heart and devoid of feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I more so am exposed to that concept on subjects of like, just thinking about how our molecules are literally kind of replaced, are like cells and molecules and atoms and all that kind of stuff, and how like we on a fundamental physical physics level, we aren't the same thing, kind of from day to day and moment to moment and stuff like that. But yeah, either way, fascinating concept.
But for another day. Let's end it here. Tell the people where they can find you, Alex, what you're up to.
What am I up to? Nothing super interesting right now. I'm trying to, stoke the fire. I'm trying to get some stuff kind of gradually happening. Maybe we'll chit chat. Matt and I, we've there's always the potential for something new around the
projects
corner.
Underway.
Projects in the ether.
We're in negotiation.
In the abstract sort of ethereal, ephemeral.
It's up here somewhere.
Ineffable space. But yeah, other than that, not really anything interesting. Starfield, a lot of Starfield. If you haven't heard about Starfield, I've been dedicating a lot of time.
Nice.
Starfield.
Nice. And I'm going to Disney World in 2 weeks tonight. That's it.
Oh, we're gonna do Wonderland pretty soon.
Should I do a video?
I mean, I just assumed you would.
Okay.
But if you don't have to,
no, I should.
It might be fun to not do a video. But I mean,
no, you always have so much more fun when I'm recording you.
Yeah.
You always you enjoy stuff more.
Yeah, that's true.
When I'm like, Alex, repeat that thing you said, but this time for the camera. And then you don't repeat it in any way that's funny or usable.
Well, it's funny to me because I'm subverting what you want, right? Like I'm negating what you want. Like and it's like, okay, actually, and then I just don't do it.
I think back to Winterfest last year, and you said something that was to me hilarious that I wanted to recreate for the video, and then you just didn't do it. I was really sad that like now that moment just exists for me as a memory.
Doesn't that make it that much more precious?
No, because I wanted to share the humor with other people.
Well, then you should have just wear a GoPro.
No, I should have been recording the whole time.
Exactly. That's your lesson to be learned.
Yeah. Do you know what moment I'm talking about?
I remember there was it beside the rink?
Like rink. Oh no.
Yeah,
it was after we got the chicken waffle sandwiches and we were freezing because of how cold it was. We were trying to find an indoor place, and like the restaurant that was close by, it was full, and then we were distraught, and you just like so earnestly, like we were in a nativity movie or a Christmas movie, you were like, wait, the Bear Lodge, the Bear Lodge will take us. I was like, that's hilarious. That's like a Christmas movie conflict. Let's like recreate this for the video. And then I was like, okay, Alex, say it again. And you were like, yeah, it's cold. We're going to the Bear Lodge.
There you go. I did what you wanted.
No,
I did what you wanted.
No, it wasn't as funny.
Yeah, I'm surprised I even did that. Like,
it wasn't as funny.
I mean, I'm not surprised because when I heard this recreation, I'm like, okay, I would have had no problem just repeating that. But it sounds like I just did that. We're going to the Bear Lodge.
No, but it was the hope in your eyes and in your voice that was funny. It was like, wait, guys, the Bear Lodge will take us, as though it was a real lodge.
As though our third wheel.
Yeah. What? No. He was the like the puppet master behind the whole video.
All right. Well, you just shout out to the puppet master then.
Exactly. So anyway, yeah, keep an eye on the channel because we're going to Halloween Haunt, and that's the closest I'll get to going to Halloween Horror Nights. So there we go. But speaking of which, Jeanette is going to Halloween Horror Nights. So Jeanette, say hello to the Invisible Man because he's in one of those mazes, and Quasimodo because he's also there, and that's problematic, but give him love because he needs it. Anyway, that's it. Subscribe. How do you end this?
Oh, is this way?
What?
You just slowly perfectly kind of like it's like off. You don't make it obvious, so like you can see how like my hand's moving, but you can't really tell. My shoulders slightly subtly, then eventually the finger creeps in, and now this is I'm slowing it down for to illustrate the effect, but it's just kind of like it's like you just end it like. Whoop.